We appreciate the candidates agreeing to participate and making time in their busy schedules to be here in Huntington tonight. We hope this forum will provide voters with an opportunity to hear the candidates and to understand their positions on the many issues that face our region and our state. And I want to thank the members of our newspaper team who have worked very hard to put this event together. Judy Reed, Mark Campbell, Lee Davis, Georgetta Thevelin, Dave Hamilton, and Connie Rappel, thank you very much for all the work that y'all did. Also, let me thank the folks at the Pullman Plaza. Thank you. I want to thank the folks at the Pullman Plaza Hotel and Jeff Riley Sound and the Media Center, which is streaming this event to the website, and hopefully people will be able to see it throughout the 3rd District. We appreciate their expert assistance. But most of all, I want to thank you, those of you who are here tonight and those of you who are watching online. I want to thank you for being an engaged citizen, and I think America needs more folks who are interested, and we hope that you will encourage your family and your friends and your neighbors to take a greater interest in our democracy and become informed, and however you decide on the issues, to get out and vote. And next week, early voting starts on Wednesday. So it's my pleasure now to introduce our moderator for tonight's debate. Les Smith has been a journalist for more than 40 years, working at newspapers in Kansas, Illinois, and Michigan, and coming to West Virginia and the Herald-Dispatch in 2007. And he is our managing editor. So please join me in welcoming Les Smith.
Thank you, Ed. It's an honor to be here this evening, and I appreciate all of you showing up to participate in this event. I want to get some housekeeping details out of the way first. We ask that there be no flash photography, if at all possible. Okay. We also would ask that everyone withhold their applause until the end of the evening, such as to reduce the number of interruptions through the course of the debate. And there was one other thing, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, cell phones, thank you. Oh, please silence or turn off your cell phones so we won't have that interruption too. So at this point, I would like for the 2 candidates to join me on the stage. Well, so much for that instruction, okay. But as we get to our opening statements and our questions, please try to control that, okay? Thank you. First, I'd like to tell a little bit about the candidates. On my right is Representative Nick Joe Rahall, the Democratic candidate in this contest. He currently is serving his 19th term in the House of Representatives, having first been elected to the position in 1976. He is the ranking member of the House's Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which has jurisdiction over highways, railways, airports, seaports, bus lines, and pipelines, as well as the Economic Development Administration, Appalachian Regional Commission, Coast Guard, Army Corps of Engineers, and Federal Emergency Management Agency. Before his election to Congress, Mr. Rahall was a businessman and served as staff aide for the late Senator Robert C. Byrd. The Raleigh County resident, is married to the former Melinda Ross of Ashland, Kentucky, has 3 children and 3 grandchildren. On my left is State Senator Evan Jenkins, the Republican candidate in this contest. A Huntington native, Mr. Jenkins has served in the West Virginia legislature for 2 decades. He was first elected to the House of Delegates in 1994 to represent Cabell and Wayne counties and served 3 terms in that body. Then in 2002, he was elected to the State Senate, where he's now serving his 3rd term. His committee assignments in the State Senate include education, enrolled bills, government organization, judiciary, military, and natural resources. In addition to serving in the legislature, Mr. Jenkins is Executive Director of the West Virginia State Medical Association, a physician-based organization focused on public health issues. Mr. Jenkins and his wife Elizabeth have 3 children. Next, I would like to talk a little bit about the format we have this evening. I think the candidates are familiar with it, but I want to explain it to all of you out there. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. Then I will ask the candidates a series of questions that were developed with ideas from our readers. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an initial response to each question, and then 1 minute for a rebuttal or clarification to each question. We will proceed through the questions in that manner with the candidates alternating and answering the questions first. After we have completed the questions, each candidate will have 3 minutes for a closing statement. We have a timer to help us keep track of the time limits we're trying to adhere to this evening. Shane Arrington, our business reporter at the Herald-Dispatch. Shane, raise your hand. Okay, thank you, Shane. Shane has 3 signs in his possession. One says 1 minute, another says 30 seconds, and the third says time up. He will flash the signs to indicate to the candidates how much time they have left for their opening and closing statements, as well as their answers to the questions and their rebuttals. Any questions from anyone? Think we're all set? Okay. I want to remind the candidates that each of you has 3 minutes for your opening comments, and we will begin with Congressman Rahall.
Thank you, Les. I want to thank the Herald-Dispatch for sponsoring this forum. Most importantly, thank each of you for your participation in our political process. Too many of our veterans have fought and died for the many freedoms we enjoy in this country, one of which is the right to vote. We all have a duty to vote. As I have been in Congress working hard for you, I feel we also have a duty to work together. In this city and across southern West Virginia, that's how you and I, together, have made progress on so many fronts. By working together, you and I have been getting things done. Through my leadership position, top leadership position on the House Transportation Committee, that has meant numerous projects across southern West Virginia, whether it be for Marshall University, whether it be for the city of Huntington, indeed throughout the southern coal fields. You know, this race comes down to really one thing. One thing, my friends. Who can you trust to stand up for the working values of our families in West Virginia? Who can you trust? Who will be on your side of our working men and women? I have always and will always be a fighter for West Virginia values, whether it's working with Republicans and standing up to my party to stop the overreaching, overzealous, coal job killing EPA agenda, or diversifying our economy, or working personally for you on problems you may have in cutting through government red tape, such as Social Security checks, veterans benefits, or black lung benefits. I'm proud of what we've been able to achieve in Washington by working together and willing and able to cross party lines. For example, I chair the House Prescription Drug Abuse Caucus with my good friend from across the aisle and across the river, Hal Rogers, the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. We've been able together to secure millions of dollars for drug prevention strategies and to fight drug abuse. Another example, I've led the effort to secure funding for Pullman Square right here in Huntington, the development of the Heartland Corridor, so important to southwestern Virginia, West Virginia, as it provides jobs for our people. And I could go on down the list, whether it's the Tulsa Highway, whether it's Route 10 in Logan County, and our top priority will be to continue to finish Route 35. You know, we must create long-term solutions for our state. When we look at the loss of Senator Robert Byrd and the pending retirement of Senator Rockefeller and the fact that this president will not be in office in 2 years, we have to think beyond for the long-term best interests of our state and what it means for a small state like West Virginia to have clout, to have seniority in the halls of Congress, and be able to work across those party aisles. You know, this election comes down to one thing. Who can we trust to fight for our West Virginia values in Congress? I have and always will be a champion for our working families, our economy, and our independent mountaineer spirit way of life. You've honored me in the past. I'm asking for your vote again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rahall. Senator Jenkins.
Thank you, Les. Thank you to the Herald-Dispatch. Thank you for this tremendous crowd turning out this evening. For those watching us on the webcast, hello. I hope you have an informative evening tonight. This is a great night. You know, candidly, I've been looking forward to a debate to talk about the issues. I issued a challenge to Congressman Rahall the night of the primary, and it's taken till now before he's willing to stand on the stage with me and talk about the importance of the issues of West Virginia. I was born and raised here in Cabell County and have represented Cabell and Wayne County in the state legislature for 18 years. As Les introduced, I have my wife Elizabeth here, my daughter Olivia, my son Charles, and I've got one off at college. And it is about our future. It's about our children's future. Why am I running for Congress? I'm running for Congress this November 4th because I think we need a change of direction, not a change of pace. I'm telling you, folks, people are hurting in West Virginia. It's the policies of Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and their faithful foot soldier, Congressman Nick Rahall, that has caused us such despair in West Virginia. It's time for a change. We've got somebody who's been in office 38 years. Now, I've represented West Virginia and Cabell County. We've done a lot of good things here in Cabell County. We brought autism coverage for children here in West Virginia, standing up to the insurance industries. We have fought the drug abuse crisis. I was the lead sponsor of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights that made sure you got your tax refunds in a timely fashion, and if they didn't, guess what? The tax department has to pay you interest. I got an email today from a gentleman out in East Lynn, and he said, you know, Evan, been a lot of talk about coal, a lot of talk about things. Those are critically important. But he says, don't forget, this is the House of Representatives, underscoring representatives. And that's what this is about. Who will be your representative? Now, I'm proud of my record. But Congressman Rahall was a staunch supporter of Obama twice, voted for Nancy Pelosi 6 times for Speaker. He has cut veterans' pensions. He has raised costs for our seniors. I'm telling you, folks, West Virginians are hurting. And I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight about those policies, about those votes. Let me close with my last 30 seconds. In an interview with Keith Olbermann, here's what Congressman Rahall said. I keep on with my endorsement of Obama because I'm looking at the long-range view of what is best for our Democratic Party. He puts his party first. I want to put West Virginia first. I want to put West Virginians back to work. I want to stand up to Barack Obama, and I would be honored to have your vote.
Thank you, Senator. Our first question this evening, which will be addressed by Mr. Jenkins first, has to do with energy. As you both are fully aware, coal has been a big topic in this campaign, and you both have stated your commitment to supporting coal. But I want to ask you to put that in the context of overall energy policy. Would you each please explain to us what kind of energy policy you think the nation should have, and what specific steps you would take as a congressman to steer the nation toward that policy? Senator Jenkins.
West Virginia is an energy state. We are proud of our coal history. We have made the manufacturing base of this country based on coal-fired power plants around our country. We have fueled America. We have 90% of the energy in West Virginia is coal-fired. We do have an oil and gas explosion as well. We need to do both, have coal as well as oil and natural gas in West Virginia. We've got a unique opportunity to lead the country in energy independence. We need to step up to the plate and free up our coal miners and make sure that they can mine the coal that God has given us and blessed us with. You can't be pro-coal and vote against the RAINS Act as Nick Rahall has. You cannot be pro-coal and vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker 6 times who wants to kill coal. You can't be pro-coal and vote for a carbon tax like Nick Joe Rahall has. I'm telling you, folks, these policies are devastating to our coal industry. You know, he voted against the Keystone Pipeline, and we can go on and on. He set up the first cap-and-trade initiative in our country. And he gave the EPA the biggest budget increase in their history, with specific directions to come up with policies relating to greenhouse gas regulations. Guess what? Those policies are coming home to roost. We can't continue in this direction. This is killing our jobs. It is limiting our ability to grow and prosper in this state. I will be 100% pro-coal. I will be pro-coal miner, and I will make sure our coal communities get back on their feet and let people get back to work.
Thank you. Congressman Rahall.
Coal is a way of life in West Virginia. It literally keeps our lights on. Coal is not just a business or a job. It is who we are. It is in our veins. Coal is everything to our state of West Virginia. I have always stood for coal, am standing for coal, and always will stand for coal. What is so important to keep in mind, my friends, is that we need an energy policy in this country that embraces all of the above as long as they are domestic resources. Yes, we have oil and gas in West Virginia. We have other energy sources as well in this nation. As long as they're domestic, we need to stand up and use those resources. Unfortunately, when you look at the facts in this race, how ironic it is that the New York billionaires who are propping up my opponent, they didn't make their money in coal, they made it in oil and gas. Coal is always going to be with us. The Energy Information Agency says that coal, while it's not generating 50% of our electricity anymore, it's still 35%. And coal is going to be here. I don't care who the President of the United States is. I don't care who the Speaker of the House is. I don't care which party controls either one. Coal is not going away. And yes, coal is a valuable natural resource we have in West Virginia. But you know as well as I do, my friends, our coal miner is the most precious resource of all. I've stood in the well in the House and fought for lower dust levels in our coal mines. I've stood with our coal miners and fought for their health and safety and pension benefits. I am proud of my record working on behalf of coal. And I don't think the Koch brothers or the Don Blankenships or the Carl Roves of the world are going to change West Virginians' knowledge of Nick Rahall's ability to fight and work for coal, because that is who we are in West Virginia. It's our way of life.
Thank you. Senator Jenkins, any clarification or rebuttal?
Sure. Let's talk about one vote in particular. Nancy Pelosi, long before Obama came onto the scene, back in 2007, said we need to green the Capitol. And guess what? Nick Rahall introduced legislation, sponsored legislation, giving directions to the architect of the Capitol to reduce carbon emissions. Guess what? The United States Capitol was fueled with coal from West Virginia. And here's a guy who sponsored a legislation to say, no, we're going to stop using West Virginia coal in fueling the capital of our United States.
Congressman Rahall?
Friends, you've never met Johnny Come Lately until tonight. He's on stage with me. 20 years he's been in the Senate of West Virginia. Ask his colleagues, has he been at the pro-coal rallies, the anti-EPA rallies that I've been at in our nation's capital in Charleston, West Virginia, testifying before the EPA against their efforts to revoke a previously granted permit in southern West Virginia? Mr. Johnny Come Lately, welcome to the battle, Evan. I'm glad you finally recognized what coal means to our state. Whatever vote it is you referenced, let's look at the facts. You know, we used to be friends. I hope we can be friends after this. But Evan, I'm happy to say, is a past supporter of mine. He gave to my campaign in 2010, after Barack Obama was elected president, after the Affordable Care Act was signed into law, after whatever vote it is that he just quoted back in 07. After all that, he was a supporter of my campaign, and I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We will go on to the next question now, which also has to do with the coal mining industry. West Virginia is the second leading coal-producing state in the nation, with thousands of people employed in what is a dangerous occupation. Do you think steps taken by the federal government have been sufficient to keep miners safe and healthy? And if not, what further steps should the federal government do to improve safety in the mines? As part of that, I would like you to address whether the government is doing enough to protect miners from black lung disease and to help those who suffer from it. Congressman Rahall, you're first.
Short answer, Les, no, no, and no. We're not doing enough to protect our coal miners. You know, I was the first official that showed up at UBB when that disastrous explosion hit on April 5th, 2010. I was with those widows, soon-to-be widows, 24/7, waiting for word from about their loved ones. We took and passed in the federal Congress a mine safety bill, but it didn't go far enough. We need to pass the Robert C. Byrd mine safety legislation in the Congress of the United States that will provide additional protections for our coal miners. We need to ensure that they have a number they can call anonymously to report unsafe conditions and not be afraid of losing their job. And we also need to step up to the plate and protect the health and safety, as I said earlier, of our most precious resource in this state, our coal miner. And I will continue to do that. I think, you know, we're not going to be 100% safe. Coal mining is a dangerous job. I've been in the coal mines, and I just wish my opponents' billionaire backers would have taken up my earlier invite this year for them to come down and go into our coal mines and see what it's like. Perhaps they'd get their $200 manicure fingers a little dusty by being in the underground with our coal miners, but at least they'd learn what coal mining is really like. So this is what it's about, being with our coal miners, and whose side are you on? Being with our working families in this state, whose side are you on? And I'm very proud of my record. That's why UMWA has endorsed me. I'm proud of Cecil Roberts standing up with me with ads. I'm proud of Senator Joe Manchin standing beside me doing TV, calling Nick Rahall a straight shooter and saying just baloney to these ads. With all due respect to baloney, I like the meat, but that's what these ads are all about, is these outsiders running their own hidden agenda.
Thank you. Senator Jenkins?
Well, I wonder if Nick Rahall, when he was with those widows and those first responders at UBB, that tragic incident, the day after UBB explosion, while they were still in a search and recovery, Nick Rahall went and sold his corporate ownership in Massey. The day after the UBB explosion, Nick Rahall, instead of consoling the widows, instead of helping the first responders, it must have been his first call was to sell his ownership interest in Massey. This is the gentleman that in 1981, he cut, reduced, changed the criteria for black lung benefits, that the UMWA official said the worst vote, the worst bill in the history of coal miners. Now, it looks to me like we're going to have a fun night with a lot of cute comments and a lot of funny gestures, but that's not going to do a bit to put our hardworking West Virginians back to work. Did you tell the people at UBB that you sold your corporate ownership the day after the disaster? I bet not. Now, he likes to talk about this money. He talked about a $500 contribution I made to him. Well, guess what? He tried to make a $2,000 illegal contribution to me. So what I did with the maximum limits in West Virginia, I sent him $1,000 back and kept the $1,000 he sent.
Mr. Congressman Rahall?
First, if Evan had been at the UBB disaster, he would have known cell phones didn't work in that area. let me say in addition that the contribution he gave me was $500. I don't know about this money shenanigans that he's talking about. You know, since he brought up the issue of money, all we have to do is follow the money. Follow the money, my friends. Look who the big backers of his campaign are. Don Blankenship, the Koch brothers, each one and their wives have personally maxed out to him. Follow the money. That will tell you whose side he's on and who is expected to respond to after the election. So let's look at the facts of this race and let's decide who is in the best interest of West Virginia. Who's there fighting for our West Virginia values, for the working men and women, to make sure, who's fighting for our coal miners. And I'm proud to have the UMWA endorsement. I'm very proud of that fact. Do you think they would endorse me if I was against black lung benefits? Don't think so.
Senator Jenkins?
You noticed he did not deny selling his corporate ownership. You notice that? Little deception there. Pretty quick. 38 years in Congress apparently teaches you a lot of tricks. But I'm telling you, what an outrage. Before he took a personal financial hit, he ran and got out of it. We're going to talk, I'm sure, a lot about the Kochs. He likes to talk about a little history. He hasn't told you that he took money from Koch Industries several years ago, long before they were ever involved in running ads for the Americans for Prosperity. Nick Rahall took money from the Kochs. Don Blankenship doesn't like me. He worked against me in a number of my campaigns. He made one contribution back in the year 2000 in another race. We've gone 14 years since then, and he's worked against me, and he doesn't support me.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on to our next question. Has to do with health reform. The Affordable Care Act has been the subject of much debate since it was passed in 2010 and continues to be now a year after its implementation. So far, about 8 million people have been enrolled through the program. What is your position on the Affordable Care Act? Should it be repealed? And if so, would you propose something in its place? If you believe it should be kept in force, do you think there should be some adjustments in the program? Senator Jenkins, you're first.
Well, my day job is in the healthcare industry. I'm passionate about care. I get up every day working to try to bring accessible, affordable care to West Virginians. That's what I do for a living, and it's a passion of mine. Obamacare was the wrong recipe. Our healthcare system is broken. We need a true healthcare system that actually does promote access, does improve access to care and reduce costs. Obamacare, come on, folks. This is a boondoggle. This has raised prices on small businesses. It has caused coverage to decrease. The Congress has a number of times tried to make changes, and in fact, Rahall has voted for a repeal of many provisions. It's not unbelievable that you've got a 2,700-page bill that does not get a single Republican vote, that Nancy Pelosi says you got to pass it before you can read it, that Barack Obama dozens of times has delayed, deferred. We have not even seen the tip of the negative consequences. But what we have seen is hurting our seniors. $700 billion out of Medicare. Thank you, Congressman Rahall. Home health care slashed. Thank you, Congressman Rahall. Obamacare is broken. It was not the right recipe. We do need to expand coverage and access. I hope we have a hearty discussion about health care reform tonight because it is critical. And I have made it perfectly clear that the Byrd Amendment relating to black lung benefits, I will fight tooth and nail to make sure for our coal miners and our widows, the 1981 vote that Rahall made that changed the eligibility and cut their benefits, I will make sure that that's preserved because we owe it to our coal miners.
Thank you. Congressman Rahall?
I've been in Congress a long time. He'll point that out. I've never seen the perfect law pass the Congress. The Affordable Care Act is not the perfect law. Does it need tweaking? You better believe it needs tweaking, and I have voted numerous times to tweak it and make the amendments necessary. It's time we put the politics aside on this bill and make it work for the American people. Yes, it has the Robert C. Byrd language in there that makes it easier and expedites the processing of black lung claims for our coal miners. You repeal the Affordable Care Act, you repeal that provision. You repeal the Affordable Care Act, you repeal the fact that insurance companies, for whom the Charleston Gazette has called my opponent the shill of, you repeal the fact that they can no longer discriminate against one because of a pre-existing condition. You would repeal the fact that they can no longer limit your coverage because of annual caps or lifelong caps. You would eliminate the fact that we've closed the donut hole for our senior citizens, making it more affordable for them to acquire prescription drugs under Part D Medicare. We've closed that donut hole. The reforms we made in Medicare was eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, eliminating duplication, eliminating going to see this doctor 500 times before you go see another doctor 1,000 times. Those were the reforms we made in the Affordable Care Act, and all of those savings, we put it right back into Medicare to ensure the solvency of the Medicare Trust Fund for another 13 years. The Affordable Care Act, the rollout was atrocious, and I said at the time, heads should roll, the president should be held responsible. If he didn't know about it, then heads certainly should have rolled much quicker than they finally did. I have voted to extend the employer mandate. I've voted to extend the individual mandate. The employer mandate, the president did finally allow that to be extended. But as I said, it's time to put the politics aside on this issue. Do you think the billionaire backers of my opponent are worried about health care? I don't think so.
Senator Jenkins, rebuttal.
Yeah. Here is the gentleman who said the 2012 or 13 lie of the year. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. That's what Barack Obama said. And guess what? That's what Nick Rahall said. He went on the radio last year after we had 9,000 people in West Virginia having their insurance policies canceled. And what did he say on the Hoppy Show? You know what? Maybe having their insurance canceled was in their best interest. It's just outstanding to me that you can be that out of touch, to think you know what's best for the people. $892 billion in new taxes in Obamacare. And each and every person in here is paying for it. And our seniors are hit up particularly hard in the cuts to Medicare and Medicare Advantage programs. It's an outrage.
Congressman Rahall.
You know, we have to look back at what the situation was when the Affordable Care Act was passed. Insurance companies were already raising premiums through the ceiling. They were canceling policies at will. They had that right. They had that, and they were exercising it to the cruelest degree on so many people. Healthcare costs were going through the ceiling, and certainly something needed to be done. The status quo was unacceptable. The new law was designed in part to prevent that sort of thing and give consumers new rights to protect themselves. For example, the new law forces insurance companies to publicly justify unreasonable premium increases. And in many cases, the insurance commissioner of the state has to justify exorbitant premium increases by insurance companies. So my opponent, who has, again, been nothing but a shill for the insurance companies, would have us go back to the old days when the insurance companies could force you off because of pre-existing conditions, could say that children could no longer remain on their parents' policy to age 26. That's another positive aspect of the law.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next question. It has to do with education. Educational achievement in West Virginia has long fallen below that of most other states in the nation, and the nation as a whole falls below the performance of many other countries. What steps, if any, do you think the federal government should take to improve the educational achievement in K through 12 schools? And do you think the Common Core Standards Initiative should be part of efforts to improve learning? Congressman Rahall, you're first.
Our federal government needs to be a partner with the states in promoting and improving our educational system. Our teachers, thank God for our teachers. You know, I can recall who my teachers were for the most part growing up, but I can't recall who my congressman was. So teachers affect the children's lives for an eternity. We must make tuition costs lower. We must provide for student loan interests that are a reasonable level, not exorbitant interest rates on student loans. We must provide Perkins loans and student and Pell Grants. This is what our young people need. We should make education affordable and accessible for any child, for any student, as long as he or she wants to go to school regardless of their financial wherewithal, not just open for the wealthy. So yes, our teachers deserve to have the tools with which to do their job. They've not had the proper tools over the years, and it's because of the efforts in Washington to slash our budget, to cut and gut so many programs, like the Tea Party, the right wing, the Ryan budget that my opponent has not said yes or no whether he'd vote for. How would you vote on the Ryan budget? It would cut the Department of Education. It would gut programs for our seniors, our veterans. Transportation would take a tremendous slash in this cut and gut Ryan budget. The same gentleman that's given to my opponent and come down here and campaign on his behalf. Let's look at what the working people of West Virginia, let's look at what is best for West Virginia values. Education is right up there at the very top. As far as the core curriculum, you know, it's really up to the states to decide as far as what the teachers do in their classroom and what they teach. There's no cookie cutter that fits all. Each state is different. We tried in the No Child Left Behind, a bipartisan effort under the Bush administration to do that, but it didn't work.
Thank you. Senator Jenkins?
Thank you. He likes to talk about who contributes and suggesting somehow we're supportive of their positions. And I've made it very clear, I would not support the Ryan budget. I will not express support for any budget I have not had an opportunity to participate in. Nick Rahall, though, voted for the progressive budget. And we can talk about that, I suspect, in a little bit. I don't support Common Core. I'm very concerned about what is happening there in this kind of national, socialized, one-size-fits-all driven policy. I don't support that. You know, big government, big Washington, you know, and he mentions No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top. We could go through all of the history of these different mega, big idea, Washington, D.C., give you a little money, but then all the strings are attached. We've got to get Washington out of our lives. Yes, we need to address the student loan debt problem. This is a crisis. There are things we can do on that front. But this big government mentality that we know what's best in Washington for education, let's put, you know, a big bill out there, but it's all the strings attached. Let's free up our teachers. I'm for new research into school choice. I'm a product. I went to the lab school here in Huntington for a couple of years. There are huge opportunities. Free up our teachers. Let's get education down to the classroom and in the neighborhoods to try to empower our teachers and our parents and our local administrators. I was chair of the Pensions Committee. A word about our teachers. During my oversight for our teachers, increased the solvency of our teacher retirement program significantly. Our teachers are important. We wanted to make sure that they also had a safe financial retirement future.
Thank you. Congressman Rahall, rebuttal.
Well, I'm proud to have the backing of teachers in this state that have endorsed my campaign. I'm proud to fight for our preschool kids, the Head Start program, the WIC program, the K through 12 program, other programs so vital to getting our children off on the right foot so that we don't have to pay higher societal costs later on in life. I have also worked and brought in the drug czar into this state of ours to work with our teachers, our educators, our law enforcement, so that we can provide proper education at an early level, which begins with the parents in the home, number one, and then extends to our teachers in the school. And right on up the line, every one of us have a responsibility to join together and help improve and fight the drug scourge, regardless of what that drug is in southern West Virginia. So these efforts help our education system. You know, too many kids have been going to school in southern West Virginia, not to learn, but to eat, because their parents have given away money on drugs over the weekend.
Thank you. Senator Jenkins?
I was in Nicholas County this summer, and a middle school teacher came up to me during the fair and said, you know what, earlier this spring, the principal came on to the intercom and said, any kids who had a parent who lost their job with the layoffs announced that morning in Nicholas County, come on down and sign up for the free lunch program. That's the policies of Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and their foot soldier, Nick Rahall. The best education policy, the best jobs policy is getting our people back to work. Let's build our families. I've got, as I look out here with my stickers on, we've got a school principal, we've got school teachers. I'm proud to be supported by teachers and administrators caring about the future. And they're here to support me, and I appreciate that. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next question, which also is related to education. A growing issue faced by many people across the country, especially in university towns such as Huntington, is the cost of higher education and the increase in debt taken on by students as they pursue their degrees. What strategies, if any, do you think the federal government should implement to control higher education costs and help students manage the burden of loan debt? Mr. Jenkins?
As I said in my previous response, loan debt is a very troubling concern. You know, we all know about the mortgage crisis. Brother-in-law's in the real estate business. We know what has happened to our country financially as a result. Every financial prognosticator says the next big crisis is the student loan debt. We must roll up our sleeves. We don't need to bring our nation's economy down again like we saw in 2008 as a result of this. We need to step up. We need to address this. And we must do it in a bipartisan way. We must do it to make sure that our children, our students, are not shouldered with this absolutely unacceptable debt. Now, in West Virginia, we have fought tooth and nail to try to put money into Marshall University. I was right there when our Marshall Medical School was having trouble, and we got an extra $1 million for Marshall. I voted against the budget this year because it had cuts to education. So we must do better about supporting education in our state, and I have a record of supporting and making sure our higher ed institutions, to the extent possible. But candidly, when you see this war on coal, sorry to keep bringing it back to that, but I'm not apologizing for saying when this economy goes down, it's real trouble. And I have been a staunch advocate, have been there almost throughout the entire period for the Promise Scholarship in West Virginia and making sure we honor the promise by keeping it fully funded.
Thank you. Congressman Rahall?
A good example of what we're doing in West Virginia to improve our education is Reconnect in McDowell County. That's an effort by the private sector, Shintel, providing free laptop computers to all the students, along with our teachers union, along with the local government, along with state government. It's headed up by former First Lady Gail Manchin. And this is going to be something that will catch on in other counties as well. The private sector has come on board, and they have a very important role to play. You've not heard me up here advocating that the federal government's a cure-all for all of our problems. It's not. Indeed, we have to support public education, and the federal government has to be a partner with us in so many areas, but it's not a cut and gut type of philosophy that's going to solve our education problems. And that's all we've seen from the so-called Ryan budget in Washington that would devastate our programs to elementary and secondary education, would devastate higher education. I've been proud of what I've been able to do for Marshall University. The federal grants that, because of my seniority, have come to Marshall's way. The earmark, if you will, that I obtained for Marshall that established the Rahall Transportation Institute, which is providing jobs through engineering, giving incentives to our young people to get involved in the engineering field, to work with our Army Corps of Engineers that I fought so hard to keep right here in Huntington so they didn't move out of our city. These are the type of cooperative efforts in which our federal government does have a role. I've hooked up Marshall, Concord, and Southern West Virginia Community College through tapping the FCC's Connect America Fund. That's a federal communications fund. It's a technology, it's an assessment on our tech companies that we've been able to secure funding from that fund to help our higher education in Southern West Virginia. And with the technology today, students can learn from their home.
Thank you. Senator Jenkins?
You know, oftentimes Nick Rahall talks about all this money. Well, you know, that's just doing his job. It's just doing his job in Congress. Let's talk about the stimulus bill. One-shot wonder, $800 billion. Let's talk about that seniority and help for Marshall and other shovel-ready initiatives. Stunningly, West Virginia 3, under Nick Rahall's leadership, got $100 million less than the 1st Congressional District. West Virginia 3, thank you, Nick Rahall, got $1 billion less than West Virginia 2. Folks, the job's not getting done. And he can talk about 5 million here or 5,000 there. And interesting, I've just heard that the fact that the Rahall Institute has been laying off people recently. So it's just not getting the job done. I'd be interested in knowing how many people you've let loose, let go, laid off as a result of not being able to bring home sufficient money to even handle the project with your name on it.
Thank you, Senator. Well, Congressman Rahall.
You know, my opponent, and I'm not new at this game, I've been around a few years. Every 2 years you hear this bad-mouthing about West Virginia from those inside our state. This gentleman's been in the state Senate as a Democrat, I might remind you, as a Democrat in the state Senate till he switched to the Republican Party. What party is going to be next year, I'm not sure. But nevertheless, where has he been the 20 years that he's been in the state Senate as a Democrat? Where has he been? Come on, friends. This naysaying that occurs every 2 years, number one, it doesn't get us anywhere. Number two, it doesn't work. And number three, it's only destroying the morale and the faith that so many hard-working West Virginians and our working men and women who hold our West Virginia values dear have in our state. Candidates like this are trying to erode that confidence and faith in our future. I believe we have the ball rolling. We're going in the right direction. Yeah, coal's in a slump now, but coal's going to come back.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to our next question.
Am I still do I have my 30 or I can't remember where we are.
I think we're done with that question.
Okay.
I do believe. Okay. Another issue that touches the lives of many West Virginians for the worse has to do with the abuse of drugs, prescription drugs, heroin, meth, and others, and addiction. What strategies would you advocate for at the federal level to rein in this destructive epidemic? Congressman Rahall.
As I said in my opening statement, I work across party aisles, and this issue is certainly a perfect example of it. I co-chair the Prescription Drug Abuse Caucus in the Congress, along with my friend from across the river and across the aisle, Hal Rogers. We've been responsible for bringing in millions of dollars to fight prescription drug abuse and other types of drug abuse and prevention strategies. This summer, I once again brought the head of National Drug Policy into West Virginia, Mike Botticelli. I've had the head of the CDC in West Virginia and the head of SAMHSA in West Virginia discussing with our officials right here in Huntington and other law enforcement from across southern West Virginia, including the judicial system, including faith-based organizations that are working with us on the drug abuse problem to try to address this issue. There's no one silver bullet that's going to solve the drug abuse problem. Don't kid yourself. There's no one person, no one legislation, no one level of government. We're all in this together. And it's going to take all of us, as I said earlier, from the parents up through the educators, to the law enforcement, to the pharmacies themselves, to our doctors, and perhaps there is a lot of work that needs to be done there so that our new doctors understand exactly what these prescriptions are that they're prescribing their patients who come in and just scream and want a pill for any little thing, and doctors are more than willing to please them and satisfy them and get them out of the door quickly. That's the type of thing we have to review, all of us together, including our pharmacies. I've also led the effort in the Congress to restore and increase the funding for HIDTA, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Initiative, which brings federal resources in along our counties that are along the state lines. Because of Huntington area, Detroit, we know is a big supplier of drugs into this area. And because of that increased trafficking, we need increased federal resources. Because I've been able to get, and just recently announced, $1 million grant for this type of federal effort. We have more federal officials interfacing with local officials and providing the technologies to track down the bad guys.
Thank you. Senator Jenkins?
This crisis is an epidemic. It is ravaging our communities, it is ravaging our state, and we are working very hard. The congressman likes to say, well, what have I done? Let me tell you what I've done on this particular issue and many others. I was the lead sponsor of a new law in West Virginia establishing the tamper-resistant prescription pad in West Virginia, my bill. I was the lead sponsor of a bill that is now the law in West Virginia that closes a loophole that allows prosecutors to go after doctor shoppers. Lead sponsor of the bill. Lead sponsor of the bill in West Virginia to go after pill mill doctors and make sure we put them, shut them down. Just a few blocks from here, tonight, there are 3 or 4 babies at Lily's place that me and Sarah and Rhonda and Mary and a countless number of other people brought to a reality, a first of its kind in the nation. And these babies are there being taken care of because they're drug withdrawing babies. They were exposed to drugs during pregnancy. This is an epidemic, and there's been nobody that has fought harder to eradicate this ravage. I was the one who led the charge to stop the synthetic cocaine and marijuana, the bath salts being sold in retail stores. I could go on and on. We've all been affected personally by this in some tragic ways. We can do a lot. It is job one.
Congressman Rahall, any further to say?
This is not a political issue. There's a lot which my opponent just said with which I agree. Who could disagree? Certainly we are at ground zero in southern West Virginia when it comes to the drug epidemic. We make progress in one area such as curtailing prescription drug abuse, and heroin abuse jumps up. It's a multi-pronged effort that's needed. And I'm talking about not only education, treatment, and prevention, but I'm talking about all levels of government as well and all political parties. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter whether you're 9 or 90. This is something that cuts across all lines, and we need to address it together. My opponent has been at drug summits I've called here in Huntington in the past. I appreciate that. We've worked together on this issue. Why shouldn't we continue to work together to try to address this drain on our economy, drain on people's lives?
Senator Jenkins, further comment?
But votes matter. Votes matter. Right before they took their recess, Congress put up 2 immigration bills. It's a hot topic. And one of the bills, Nick Rahall voted against. Guess what was in that bill? What was in that bill was a provision that says if you're a drug dealer, a drug thug, somebody from another country that has been dealing drugs, you can't come to this country and be eligible for asylum. You know, look at our border to Mexico. Look what's happening in Central America. These people are coming across the border. Yes, I feel for the children. But we've got some bad apples. We've got some drug dealers coming into this country. And he voted against a bill to secure our borders and say you can't be a drug dealer and come into the United States and be eligible for asylum.
Thank you. We'll go on to our next question. It's about another kind of threat. The militant group known as the Islamic State is wreaking havoc in the Middle East and has made it clear that it views the United States as an enemy. Has the U.S. response to this threat so far been sufficient, in your opinion? If not, what further steps do you think should be taken? Senator Jenkins?
Thank you. You know, we've all been moved, obviously, in profound ways with the beheadings and what has happened. You know, and every discussion about this always starts, why did we wait so long? You know, the president called it the JV crew. Didn't take it seriously. Back when Assad in Syria a couple of years ago horrifically used chemical weapons against his citizens and was just trying to figure out what to do, Nick Rahall said, well, I want to give the president the benefit of the doubt. We need leadership. Our country is not respected around the world. We are a Johnny-come-lately to, it seems like, every crisis. I fully support airstrikes in Iraq. I fully support airstrikes in Syria. But I also want to make sure that all of the Arab community steps up to the plate and put their boots on the ground, put their men and women like we do on the line. I'm telling you, this ISIS stuff is shows how much our lack of leadership has led to a much more dangerous world we live in.
Thank you, Congressman Rahall.
ISIS is a threat to America's national security. It must be taken seriously. There's no joking around here with this heinous group. It's vital that we cut the head of the snake off. President Obama is conducting air raids as we speak to hit at the head of the snake, the command and control centers in Iraq and in Syria. I support those strikes. I voted for a limited authorization, not for these strikes, but a limited authorization to arm the moderate Syrian rebels until December 15th. Now, should we have identified who these moderate Syrian rebels are years ago? You betcha we should have, to ensure that our arms and our help does not fall into the wrong hands and is used against us in the future. It's a risky strategy upon which the president has embarked. I'm opposed to any boots on the ground. I oppose the Iraq War, for example, and I don't want to see us go through that again. Any further actions that the president takes, in my opinion, deserves an open debate in the halls of Congress so that the people's representatives can speak, so we can have a free flow of information. Yeah, I've been to some of these classified briefings, and yes, this is a serious issue. And have there been mistakes made in the past? You betcha there's been mistakes made in the past, but that's gone. We've got to look to the future, and we have to address this growing threat to our national security. And yes, we must bring our allies on board. We must build an international coalition like the first George Bush did, and which I supported when he went into Iraq to get them out of Kuwait. That's the type of coalition building we need now to ensure that those of our allies in the region have skin in the game. It's their security that's a threat immediately before this threat grows to our borders.
Senator Jenkins?
Congress should weigh in. You know, they went out on recess, the House and the Senate, 2-3 weeks ago. By all accounts, it's the longest break in anybody's memory, so they can go out and campaign. I think it's an outrage that our elected representatives are not in Washington, not putting up a vote on whether or not we should engage more fully in this war in the Middle East, in Iraq and Syria. But no, they put politics first. They're spending their time on the campaign trail talking about it and not in Washington doing something about it.
Congressman Rahall?
So that's Rahall's fault, that Congress is out of session. First of all, the House of Representatives is controlled by your party, your newfound party. Second of all, you know, yeah, we need to be back home meeting with our people, hearing their issues. That's why we in the House are the closest elected federal officials to the people. There's nobody who gets to the House of Representatives by appointment. It's only by election. So yes, we ought to be home listening what you have to say about ISIS, about what you have to say about Social Security and Medicare. We should not be allowing these out-of-state billionaires to be pouring their millions of dollars into West Virginia trying to buy this state so they can have a puppet in the Congress that they can control. That's not, West Virginia is not for sale, my friends. We are not for sale, and we need to stand up for the working values of West Virginia families. West Virginia values is what we need to push harder in our nation's capital.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. It has to do with Social Security and Medicare trust funds. I believe we're all aware that a significant portion of West Virginians rely on Social Security and Medicare benefits, and many in the future will be counting on those benefits too for income and health care. As of now, officials project that the trust funds supporting Social Security will be depleted within a couple of decades, forcing a reduction in benefits if nothing is done. For Medicare, the forecast for depletion of that fund is slightly sooner. What do you think should be done to strengthen the long-term viability of these programs, and how soon do you think action should be taken? Congressman Rahall.
Social Security is a contract that our seniors have with their federal government. That contract should in no way be reneged upon or changed in any manner, shape, or form. Social Security is not the reason we're in the deficit we are in today. Social Security has not been a part of the problem with deficit spending. This is money that every one of us pay into, myself included, and that money should be there when we're ready to retire. I have supported cost of living adjustments more than the 1.5% that went to our seniors this past January. I have legislation in that would recalculate the way the formula is derived that makes up that COLA adjustment. The formula today in no way takes into account the true cost of living increases that our seniors living on fixed incomes are facing, like electricity going up, like gasoline going up. And no, electricity is not going up because of a carbon tax that never passed the House of Representatives, and for which, if you read the bill, was never in the bill I supported. What was in that bill was a tax on billionaires, so why do you think the billionaires are ganging up against me? Duh. So Social Security is a contract our people have. I am against privatizing Social Security, as my opponent's puppet masters want. The best way to shore up the long-term issues of Social Security, put people to work. Let's pass an infrastructure jobs bill that puts our people to work in good-paying jobs. In good-paying jobs, and the last time I checked, when you have a job, you pay taxes, that helps reduce the deficit. That can help shore up Social Security. So let's not forget about a good old-fashioned jobs bill. That's what we need. Medicare, I'm not for changing Medicare into a voucher system, as the Ryan budget would do, as the out-of-state billionaire supporting my opponent want to do. Medicare should be there for our seniors, not change into a voucher system where they will have to pay more and get less.
Senator Jenkins.
I agree that Social Security Medicare is a contract, it's an obligation, it's a moral obligation, and we must do everything. I oppose privatization of Social Security. I oppose a voucher program for Medicare. It's just, again, more rhetoric trying to scare. You know, these ads that he's running have been labeled false, deceptive, and they actually call them meta-scare. Well, he talks about the carbon tax. He's been out saying it's not in there. It's even got the nice little U.S. House of Representatives seal on it. Here's the Congressional Budget Progressive Caucus. Now, maybe this is like Obamacare. You didn't read the bill before you passed it. So let me read it. Let me read it. Impose a price on carbon pollution. The back-to-work budget, the progressive budget he voted for, would impose a $25 per ton price on carbon dioxide. There's only one person, candidly, that I can find in the world, because every political commentator, Hoppy Kercheval, all the Washington folks, the people who drafted it, say there's a carbon tax in it. He wants to keep running from it. Well, I want to leave the last second and mention this campaign finance, my 30 seconds. Campaign finance, individual contributions versus PAC. 80% of the Jenkins for Congress contributions are from individuals. Only 32% are from individuals for Nick Rahall. In-state versus out-of-state. 61% of my contributions are from in-state. Only 28% of his are from in-state. We want to talk about who's owned.
Your time's up.
Look at the facts.
Thank you.
And read the law.
First of all, Congress, is it my response?
Yes.
Congress has never passed a law with 2 pages. I don't know what you're reading from, some type of summary printed up by after the fact, but I have read that budget. Yes, I have it on my desk. I know I should have brought it with me, and nowhere is carbon tax mentioned in it. It's a tax on billionaires. It preserves Social Security, and it protects Medicare, and it protects the social safety net for our working families in this country. That's what that budget was all about. But let's get back to campaign finance, since he brought it up. I believe all this dark money that's flooding our state should be disclosed. We have to do it in our personal campaigns. His mentioned the PAC funding that I have. I am very proud of the voluntary contributions I have from the working men and women of this state, from the UMWA, from business leaders, from dentists, cyclists. Every group has a right to form their PAC comprised of voluntary, fully disclosed donations. That's what my support is all about. And I don't back away from that for one iota. I have a pledge that I've put out there and signed, but unfortunately my opponent doesn't want his dark money disclosed from whence it's coming. It could even be a federal government hijacking our democracy. That's a fear we should have in this country.
Congressman, time's up.
One of those.
Senator Jenkins.
Yeah, guess what? The IRS employees PAC contributed to his campaign. The IRS employees PAC contributed to your campaign. I'm telling you, it's an outrage. You know, and again, I only have 30 seconds. We're going to be talking a lot more about this outside spending. But it was me who, when Counter PAC said, let's get the dark money out, I said, let's do it. And he said, no, it put him at a disadvantage. It was me that showed up a week ago for a meeting to get dark money out. He didn't show. It's all talk and no action. Where were you? Your campaign manager showed up. We said, well, where are you? He said, you know what? I'm not at liberty to say where he is. I said, are you authorized to sign this? He says, no. Can you get him on the phone? No, I can't.
Do I get a response?
Senator, I'm sorry. We're on to the next question. I guess I won't have to ask about campaign finance, though. Okay.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Now we're going on to another topic. You have your closing statements. Okay. Next question is about jobs in the economy. Much of the debate revolving around the coal industry in West Virginia has to do with jobs. However, I think we all know that preserving jobs in that industry alone will not move West Virginia's economy forward to any great degree. Apart from the coal industry, what initiatives or policies do you think should be implemented to promote job growth in West Virginia as well as across the nation? Mr. Jenkins, you're first.
Thank you. Also, the progressive budget cut the military $900 billion. We ought to keep talking about some of those votes. You know what? The best jobs bill in West Virginia, the best jobs action in West Virginia would again be to get this administration off of our backs. Every time a question like Les is said, well, what's the future after coal? It makes me think that, you know, I'm not going to get baited into the idea that coal is over. You know, Nick Rahall may think it's a slump, which is when he turned his back on a coal miner in Logan, when the coal miner approached him and said, why did you support Obama twice? And Nick Rahall said, because he's a Democrat, and turned and walked away from him. I'm telling you, what we need to do is get West Virginia back to work. We need to get our coal miners back to work. I'm the sponsor of the legislation bringing the Hatfields and McCoy Trail system in West Virginia. I believe in tourism. I believe in manufacturing. I believe in health care. These are critically important, but I will never turn my back on our hardworking coal miners and our coal communities in West Virginia.
Thank you. Congressman Rahall.
Coal is, has been, always will be our #1 industry in West Virginia. I'll never turn my back on our coal industry or our coal miners. But let's face it, my friends, we cannot put all of our eggs in the coal basket. We need to diversify our economy. And I'm very proud of the efforts I've taken to diversify our economy in West Virginia. Using my leadership on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, using my past chairmanship of the House Natural Resources Committee, my ability to work across party aisles and get things done for our people, has produced in southern West Virginia, just as one example in the tourism field, after I protected the New River in 1977, my first year in the Congress, I built upon that protection and in the mid-'80s built the largest system of federally protected rivers east of the Mississippi. Guess who was President of the United States then? Ronald Reagan. Guess who his Interior Secretary was? James Watt, who strongly recommended a veto of what they thought was the federal government extending its protection of lands. But we had Republicans, because I'd worked across the party aisle, everybody was for it in West Virginia. I had Republican friends in West Virginia I went to and said, can you call the president, knowing there were close relationships there, and get him to back off this veto? It was done. The bill was signed into law. We now have the largest system of federally protected rivers east of the Mississippi in southern West Virginia, which was the anchor, I have no question about it, that helped draw the Boy Scouts of America to southern West Virginia. My opponents mentioned the Hatfield and McCoy Trail system. I got the first $600,000 from the federal level to study such a trail system in southern West Virginia. It's doing for the southwestern part of southern West Virginia what whitewater rafting is doing for the southeastern part. In addition, for the first time ever, I directed the Corps of Engineers by legislation to release whitewater from the Summersville Dam for whitewater rafting purposes. Previous to that, they'd been fighting each other. Now that's another additional rafting season for West Virginia, producing revenues and jobs for our people.
Senator Jenkins.
Thanks. He talks about not turning his back. When he voted for a carbon tax, he turned his back on West Virginia coal miners. When he voted against the RAINS Act to limit the EPA's overreach that Joe Manchin supported, he voted against it. He turned his back on hardworking West Virginians. When he, I could go on and on the votes. When he said in 2009, when all of those permits were held up by the EPA, and Nick Rahall said the EPA is just doing their job, he turned his back on West Virginians. And when he runs these ads that says, I'll never let anybody stand up in the way of our West Virginia ways, well, I'm telling you, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid are staying and standing in the way of our jobs, and he's sitting there helping them every step of the way. He voted for her 6 times for Speaker. If he's elected here in 2-3 weeks, guess what? He's going to vote for her again.
Thank you, Senator. Congressman Rahall?
There he goes again. A carbon tax that never became law, that was not even in the bill, if you read the bill. I am for coal. I'll look every coal miner in this state in the face and say that, as I have done, and I'm proud to have their endorsement in this election. Reference has been made to the RAINS Act, which would have required every regulation of the federal government costing over $100 million be subjected to congressional approval. Outrageous. That would have endangered, rather, our food safety laws, our highway safety laws, our air traffic laws, safety laws. I would rather zero in on the EPA, as I have done in a bipartisan fashion, being a Democrat, moderate Democrat, whom the Republicans can reach across party aisles and get my support and get my help in getting Democratic votes for these anti-EPA bills that pass the House of Representatives, one after another with Nick Rahall's name on it. That's the type of bipartisanship we need.
Thank you. Well, we are done with our questions for this evening, and now we'll go to the closing statements from the 2 candidates. Senator Jenkins will be first.
Thank you very much. That 90 minutes went by quick. I again welcome the fact that the Herald-Dispatch was able to facilitate this. And again, I have been pushing for substantive debates. As you can tell, we have a very spirited exchange. I've been hoping for this, wanting it, asking for it for months. Finally, Congressman Rahall agreed. Thank you to the Herald-Dispatch. Thank you to all who are watching. But again, back to my first point. This is about the House of Representatives. You know, our Constitution and our framers set up a pretty good process. We elect a president for 4 years. But we have the House of Representatives elected every 2 years. This is an opportunity to make a change, to make an adjustment, to say, you know what, is it really working for you? And I don't know how you can spend the last 38 years or the last lifetime of being a West Virginian or on this campaign trail and not understand West Virginians are hurting. Families are hurting. We've had 5,000 coal jobs lost. We've had 43% of our coal employment in Appalachia wiped out. We've got Obamacare that has an $800 billion raid on Medicare. We've got problems, folks. And don't think, or maybe just ask yourself, do you think year 39 and 40 are going to be any different? When you've got a record like he has? So I stepped up to the plate to say I wanted to give the voters of West Virginia and 3rd Congressional District an opportunity for a change. Not a supporter of Barack Obama, not a 6-time voter for Nancy Pelosi, not somebody who cut our military pensions, as the congressman has done when he rolled back their COLAs. We can go on. And it has been a robust campaign. But let me close with this issue as he keeps bringing up about the ads. The House Majority PAC is Nancy Pelosi's super PAC, and she gets all this billionaire money into her PAC to run against me. These are anti-coal people to get him elected. The DCCC, because they're out for an environmental policy, are helping Nick Rahall. And his ad that's recently running was declared the most dishonest, one of the top 5 most dishonest ads in the entire country this election cycle. I asked for clean elections. I asked to get special money out. But he said no. He's beholden to the PAC contributions and the out-of-state interests. I would be honored to have your vote for a change of direction, not a change of pace.
Thank you, Senator.
I get to
Could we please let the congressman speak now? Thank you. Congressman Rahall.
As I said in my opening statement, I have and I always will be a fighter for West Virginia values. I'm very proud of my record. I've run on it every time I've run for re-election, and it is one that represents West Virginia values. It represents our love of God, our love of family, and our love of this great state of ours. You know, it means working across party aisles, too. In today's dysfunctional Congress, it means a great deal to be able to reach across the aisle, work with Republicans against my own party when it comes to passing legislation that seeks to rein in an overzealous, overreaching, anti-coal EPA agenda, or whether it is working to protect our coal miners' health, safety, and pension benefits, whether it's fighting to raise the minimum wage, which my opponent opposed in the state legislature, making sure that a good education is available to everyone, not just the wealthy. I always put West Virginia first. Who's going to be able to help the people of southern West Virginia the most? That's the big question in this election. I can bring in investments in highways and water and sewage reconstruction and building such systems throughout southern West Virginia. Many legislative initiatives I've co-sponsored that have done that. I've broadened our tourism potential. I've aided our colleges and universities. I've strengthened our veterans services through the bipartisan veterans bill, $16 billion bill we passed this year. Or on the other side of the equation, who's going to be there doing the bidding for out-of-state billionaires who have an agenda totally adverse to West Virginia's best values? We don't need the extremes in the Republican Party or the extremes of the Democratic Party. What we need to do is end the gridlock and dysfunction to continue our own, rather than follow those hidden agendas that these billionaires have. Believe you me, they're after a hidden agenda that doesn't help West Virginia. They're supporting all these efforts in Congress to cut and gut programs so vital to our working families in West Virginia. I say follow the money, my friends. When out-of-state billionaires came a-talking, my opponent went a-walking. That's what it boils down to. He'll do their bidding. I support coal. I believe that to support coal, you have to support our coal miners. I have good Democratic friends. I have good Republican friends. I do work across party aisles. Even in this very divisive Congress, I can bring both sides together to make good things happen for West Virginia and keep the national interest above party politics. I was born and raised here in West Virginia. It's my home, and it will always be my home. It's where my heart is. You've honored me with your support in the past, and for the sake of our state's future, I'm hoping and asking you to stick with Nick again. Keep the ball rolling, and I ask for your vote. Thank you for participating, and God bless each of you.
All right. Everybody, applaud both candidates, please. Let's go. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. Special thanks to the candidates for sharing their views and barbs with each other. But it's been a great event. Thank you again for being here. Thank you.